Part 1. The moment most people realize they were playing the wrong game. There is a moment that happens quietly in the lives of many people. It does not come with an announcement. There is no warning, no dramatic music, no flashing lights, just a quiet realization. Sometimes it happens late at night. A person is sitting alone, looking at their bank account, thinking about bills, thinking about the years that have passed, and a strange question appears. How is it possible that I have worked this hard for this long and I am still not financially free? This question has echoed in the minds of millions of people across the world. People who wake up early, work long hours, follow the rules, do everything they were told, and yet somehow wealth never arrives. At first, they blame themselves. Maybe I should work harder. Maybe I need another job. Maybe I need to sacrifice more. But the truth is much deeper than that. The truth is that most people were never taught how wealth actually works. They were taught how to work, but they were never taught how money moves. And there is a massive difference between those two things. Working creates income. Understanding systems creates wealth. This is the first idea that separates ordinary earners from extraordinary builders. Most people spend their entire lives trading time for money, but the wealthy rarely play that game. Instead, they learn something far more powerful. They learn how to build value that works even when they are not working. And once someone truly understands this idea, their entire view of the world begins to change. Because suddenly they notice something they never saw before. The world is not built on effort, it is built on leverage. Think about this for a moment. Two people may work equally hard. One person works 10 hours a day in a job. Another person spends years building a system. At first, the worker earns more, but something strange begins to happen over time. The system begins to grow. Customers multiply, value expands, and eventually the system begins producing income far beyond the limits of human time. This is why some people seem to move slowly for years and then suddenly accelerate, because wealth rarely grows in a straight line. It grows in layers, and every layer is built on a deeper understanding of value. Most people never reach those layers, not because they cannot, but because no one ever showed them the map. From childhood, we are taught a very simple formula: study hard, get good grades, find a stable job, work consistently, save money, and one day you will be secure. But there is a hidden flaw inside this formula. It was designed for stability, not for wealth. And stability is not the same thing as financial freedom. Financial freedom requires something entirely different. It requires understanding how money expands. It requires understanding how value multiplies. And most importantly, it requires understanding how opportunity hides inside everyday problems. Look closely at the people who create massive wealth. They do not simply chase income. They study systems. They study behavior. They study patterns. And over time, they begin to notice something extraordinary. The economy rewards those who create value at scale, not those who work the hardest. This idea is difficult for many people to accept because effort feels fair. We like to believe that the hardest workers should receive the greatest rewards, but the economic world does not operate on fairness. It operates on value. A single idea that improves millions of lives can generate more wealth than decades of labor. A simple innovation can create more income than thousands of working hours. And once you understand this principle, the entire game begins to look different. Instead of asking, "How can I work harder?" you begin asking a far more powerful question: where is value being created, and how can I participate in that creation? This shift in thinking is the beginning of the wealth journey.
It is not about luck. It is not about genius. It is about awareness. Because opportunities for wealth exist everywhere, but they are invisible to the mindset that was trained only to work. The worker mindset searches for instructions. The wealth mindset searches for patterns. The worker mindset focuses on effort. The wealth mindset focuses on leverage. And once you begin to see these differences, you start noticing them everywhere. You notice how certain individuals move differently, how they observe markets, how they analyze problems, how they talk about time. For them, time is not just something to spend, it is something to invest. Because time used wisely becomes skill, skill becomes value, value becomes leverage, and leverage becomes wealth. But there is another layer to this transformation, a psychological layer. Because the journey toward wealth does not begin in the bank, it begins in the mind. Every financial decision a person makes is influenced by invisible beliefs, beliefs about money, beliefs about success, beliefs about what is possible. And many people unknowingly carry beliefs that quietly sabotage their financial future. Some believe wealth is reserved for the lucky. Others believe wealth requires unethical behavior. Some believe wealth is simply too difficult to achieve. And these beliefs shape every decision they make. They influence how people spend, how they invest, how they react to opportunity. And over time, these small decisions create enormous differences. This is why two people with similar backgrounds can end up in completely different financial worlds. One begins to study value, the other continues trading time. One begins to build systems, the other continues following instructions. One begins to think like a creator, the other remains a participant. And over years, these differences compound until the gap becomes enormous. But here's the most important truth. The journey toward wealth does not require a perfect beginning. Many of the most successful investors and entrepreneurs started with very little. What they shared was not privilege, it was curiosity. They became students of money. They asked questions most people never ask. How does value grow? Why do certain businesses scale? Why do certain ideas spread across the world? Why do certain investments multiply over time? And the deeper they studied, the clearer the map became. They discovered that wealth is not random. It follows patterns, patterns of value, patterns of behavior, patterns of opportunity. And those who learn to recognize these patterns gain an enormous advantage because they begin to position themselves where growth naturally happens. Instead of fighting against the current, they move with it. This is the real beginning of the wealth journey. Not the moment someone earns their first million, but the moment they realize something powerful. The world is full of opportunity, but only for those who learn to see it. And this realization marks the end of one way of thinking and the beginning of another. Because once you begin understanding the hidden rules of wealth, you can never return to the old way of seeing the world. And in the next part, we will explore the invisible rules that quietly control the flow of money in the modern world. Rules that most people never notice, but once understood, they change everything.
Part 2. The invisible rules that control money. There is something strange about money. Everyone uses it. Everyone works for it. Everyone depends on it. And yet very few people truly understand how it moves. Most people think money flows toward hard work. But if that were true, the hardest workers in society would all be wealthy. Construction workers, factory workers, nurses working double shifts, farmers working from sunrise to sunset. Yet many of them struggle financially. So clearly, money is not simply attracted to effort. Money follows a different set of rules, invisible rules,
rules that quietly shape who becomes wealthy and who remains trapped in the cycle of working for survival. The problem is that these rules are rarely taught in school. Instead, people are taught how to earn money, but not how money behaves. And money behaves more like energy than like a reward. It flows, it moves, it concentrates where value expands. Once you begin to understand this idea, the world starts to look different. You begin to see that wealth is not created by labor alone. It is created where value multiplies. Imagine two individuals. The first person spends 10 hours a day working. The second person spends 10 hours designing a system that thousands of people will use. At the beginning, their effort may look similar, but their outcomes will not, because the system has something powerful, scale, and scale changes everything. Scale allows one idea to reach thousands, sometimes millions. This is why a single software product can generate more income than thousands of traditional jobs. This is why a simple digital platform can create billions of dollars in value. The creator of the system is no longer limited by hours. They are connected to the power of multiplication. This is the first invisible rule of money. Money grows where value scales. And once someone understands this rule, they begin to ask different questions. Instead of asking, how can I earn more per hour? They begin asking, how can I create value that reaches more people? This small shift in thinking changes the direction of an entire life, because suddenly the goal is not just earning, the goal becomes building. Building systems, building ideas, building solutions. And the world pays extremely well for solutions. Every successful company in the world exists because it solved a problem. Transportation problems, communication problems, health problems, entertainment problems. Wealth is simply the reward for solving problems at scale. But there is another invisible rule, a rule that many people discover too late. Money does not respect effort. Money respects value. This may sound unfair, but it explains why some individuals earn enormous incomes for ideas that seem simple. A musician creates a song once, but millions listen to it. An author writes a book once, but readers across the world buy it. A programmer builds an application once, but millions of users download it. In each case, the effort happens once, but the value multiplies endlessly. And this multiplication is what wealth truly looks like. The tragedy is that most people spend their lives chasing effort, working harder, working longer, working faster, while the wealthy quietly focus on multiplication. They ask themselves, how can this idea reach more people? How can this product scale? How can this system run without my constant presence? These questions separate workers from builders. Workers exchange time. Builders create engines. And engines produce results long after the work is finished. Think about the difference between pushing a car and building an engine. Pushing requires continuous effort. The moment you stop pushing, the car stops moving. But an engine continues running once it is started. This is exactly how wealth systems behave. They require effort at the beginning, but eventually they produce results automatically. This is why the early stages of wealth creation often feel slow. Builders spend years learning, experimenting, failing, adjusting. From the outside, it may look like nothing is happening, but beneath the surface, something powerful is forming. Knowledge, skills, networks, experience. All of these elements combine to create leverage, and leverage is the real secret behind extraordinary wealth. Leverage means achieving greater results with less direct effort. Technology creates leverage. Capital creates leverage. Teams create leverage. Ideas create leverage. Once someone understands leverage, their entire relationship with work changes. They stop measuring success by hours worked and start measuring success by impact created. Because impact attracts opportunity. Opportunity attracts capital. Capital accelerates growth. This chain reaction is how wealth expands. But there is another invisible rule that surprises many people. Money moves toward confidence, not arrogance, but clarity. Investors trust people who understand their vision. Customers trust people who believe in their solution. Partners trust people who move with direction. Confidence is magnetic. It signals that a person has done the thinking required to navigate uncertainty. And uncertainty exists in every opportunity. This is why many brilliant ideas never succeed, because the creator lacks the belief required to bring the idea into reality, while someone with less talent but stronger conviction builds momentum. Over time, confidence attracts support. Support attracts growth. Growth attracts wealth. This is why the psychology of money is just as important as the mechanics of money. Those who believe opportunity exists begin to search for it. Those who believe the system is unfair stop looking entirely. And the moment someone stops looking, they stop seeing possibilities. But the invisible rules continue operating regardless of belief. Value continues to flow. Innovation continues to create opportunity. Markets continue to reward solutions. And somewhere, someone is building the next engine of wealth, often quietly, often slowly, but steadily. Because those who understand the invisible rules know something powerful. Wealth rarely appears suddenly. It grows through layers of understanding. Every lesson builds another level of awareness. Every level reveals new opportunities. And as awareness grows, so does the ability to recognize where value will appear next. This ability is what separates observers from creators. Observers watch the economy. Creators shape it. Observers follow trends. Creators build the trends others follow. And the moment someone begins thinking like a creator, their entire financial future begins to shift. Because creators do not simply ask, how can I survive in this economy? They ask, where is the next wave of opportunity forming, and how can I ride it? Understanding these invisible rules is only the beginning. Because once someone sees how money truly moves, a deeper question appears. If wealth follows patterns, then are there levels of thinking that lead to greater levels of wealth? The answer is yes. And in the next part, we will explore the first level of wealth thinking, the level where ordinary earners begin transforming into builders of value, the level where the journey towards financial independence truly begins.
Part 3. The first level of wealth thinking. There is a moment in the life of every future wealth builder when the way they see the world begins to shift. Nothing dramatic happens on the outside. They still wake up in the same room, they still walk the same streets, they still see the same people, but internally something has changed. They begin asking questions that most people never ask. Why do some people seem to rise financially no matter where they start? Why do others work endlessly yet remain stuck? Why do certain ideas become billion-dollar industries while others disappear? These questions mark the entrance to the first level of wealth thinking. Because wealth does not begin with money, it begins with awareness. Most people live their entire lives reacting to circumstances. They react to bills, they react to job opportunities, they react to economic changes. But those who begin thinking differently start observing patterns instead of reacting to them. They begin to study the world the way a strategist studies a game. They look at industries, they look at markets, they look at behavior, and slowly they begin to notice something fascinating. Every industry is simply a collection of problems waiting to be solved. Transportation was once a problem.
Then someone created faster vehicles. Communication was once a problem. Then someone built systems that allowed people to connect instantly across the world. Entertainment was once limited by geography. Then technology allowed creators to reach millions of people instantly. In each case, the wealth did not appear because of luck. It appeared because someone saw a problem before others saw the opportunity inside it. This shift from problem thinking to opportunity thinking is the gateway into the wealth mindset. But there is another powerful realization that happens at this level. Wealth is rarely created by individuals working alone. It is created through systems. A job depends on one person's time, but a system connects many people together. Employees, customers, technology, capital, ideas, all interacting together to create value. When these elements combine properly, they form a system, and engines can run continuously. Think about the difference between a single worker and a well-designed system. If the worker stops working, the income stops, but if the system continues operating, value continues to flow. This is why the first level of wealth thinking focuses heavily on learning how systems work. Successful wealth builders study systems everywhere. They study how successful businesses operate. They study how markets respond to innovation. They study how human behavior shapes demand. Over time, they begin to understand that wealth is rarely accidental. It is usually the result of a system that creates consistent value. This realization leads to another important shift. People begin to see their career differently. Instead of asking, "What job should I do?" they begin asking, "What system am I building knowledge inside?" Because knowledge compounds. Every skill learned becomes a building block for future opportunity. Every connection formed opens doors that were invisible before. Every experience creates a deeper understanding of value. At first, these elements seem small, but over time they accumulate, and eventually they create leverage. Leverage is the moment when a person's impact becomes larger than their direct effort. A teacher who writes a book suddenly reaches thousands of students. An entrepreneur who builds a product suddenly serves millions of customers. An investor who understands markets can grow capital without constant labor. Each example demonstrates the same principle. The goal is not simply to work. The goal is to expand impact, because income tends to follow impact. The more people you help, the more problems you solve, the more value you create, the more wealth naturally flows toward you. But this stage also requires patience. Many people abandon their journey too early because the early phases of wealth thinking rarely produce immediate financial results. Learning takes time, observing takes time, building systems takes time. During these early years, progress often feels invisible. But beneath the surface, something extraordinary is happening. Perspective is changing. And perspective changes everything. Because two people can stand in the exact same place and see completely different opportunities. One sees limitations, the other sees possibilities. One sees risk, the other sees potential. One sees competition, the other sees innovation. This difference in perception becomes the foundation of future wealth. And the more someone trains their mind to look for opportunities, the more opportunities appear. Not because the world changed, but because their awareness expanded. Suddenly, ideas begin forming. Connections between industries become visible. Solutions to everyday frustrations begin appearing in the mind. And slowly, a person realizes something remarkable. The world is full of value waiting to be created. Most people simply never look for it. This is the beginning of the wealth builder's path, the moment when curiosity replaces routine, the moment when observation replaces reaction, the moment when someone begins seeing the economy not as a system they're trapped inside, but as a landscape of opportunities waiting to be explored. Yet even at this stage, there is still a powerful obstacle that stops many people from moving forward, an invisible trap that keeps millions of intelligent and hard-working individuals financially stuck. A trap so common that most people never even realize they're inside it. And in the next part, we will uncover the hidden trap that quietly keeps people working harder while moving nowhere closer to true wealth.
Part 4. The trap that keeps people working hard but going nowhere. There is a silent trap that captures millions of intelligent people every year. It does not look dangerous. In fact, it often looks responsible, safe, practical, logical. It begins with a simple belief: if I work harder, my life will eventually become easier. At first, this belief feels true. Hard work often leads to small improvements, a promotion, a slightly higher salary, a better position. And for a while, it feels like progress. But something strange happens over time. The harder many people work, the more trapped they become. Their responsibilities increase, their expenses grow, their time disappears. And suddenly they find themselves in a strange position. They are earning more money than ever before, yet they feel less free than they did years earlier. This is the hidden trap of the income ladder. Most people believe the path to financial freedom is simply climbing higher in their career. More promotions, more salary increases, more hours invested. But this strategy has a limitation that many people never notice. Income from labor always has a ceiling. There are only 24 hours in a day. Even the most productive professional cannot escape this physical limit. And as income increases, something else tends to increase as well. Lifestyle, a larger home, a more expensive car, more financial commitments. Slowly, a person's financial structure expands to match their income, and without realizing it, they enter a cycle that becomes extremely difficult to escape. Work produces income, income increases lifestyle, lifestyle requires more income, which requires more work. This cycle can continue for decades. Many people reach the peak of their careers only to realize they have built a life that depends entirely on their continued labor. If they stop working, the entire structure collapses. This is not wealth, it is dependency. The trap becomes even more powerful because society praises it. People admire the appearance of success, the busy schedule, the impressive job title, the visible lifestyle. But behind the appearance, there is often an uncomfortable reality. Many high earners are not financially free. They are financially obligated. They must continue working because their entire life structure requires constant income. The wealth mindset recognizes this trap early, and instead of focusing exclusively on income, it focuses on ownership. Ownership changes everything. When you own a piece of a system, you benefit from its growth. A business owner benefits when the company expands. An investor benefits when assets appreciate. A creator benefits when their ideas reach new audiences. Ownership allows income to continue even when a person is not actively working. And this difference may seem small at first, but over time it becomes enormous. Imagine two individuals. The first earns a high salary but owns nothing. The second earns less income but gradually builds ownership in assets. At the beginning, the high earner appears more successful, but years later, something remarkable often happens. The person building ownership begins experiencing income from multiple directions. Investments grow, businesses generate profits, assets increase in value. Meanwhile, the high earner is still dependent on the next paycheck. This is why wealth builders focus heavily on acquiring assets rather than simply increasing income. Assets are engines. They produce value repeatedly. Income from labor happens once, but income from assets can continue indefinitely. This is the moment when many people begin seeing their financial life differently. They stop asking, "How can I earn more?" and start asking, "What can I own that produces value?"
This question changes financial decisions dramatically. Instead of spending every dollar on consumption, a portion of income begins moving toward ownership. Ownership of investments, ownership of businesses, ownership of intellectual property. Each asset becomes a small engine, and as more engines appear, financial momentum begins to grow. But escaping the trap also requires another shift, a shift in how people think about comfort. The income ladder trap is powerful because it offers comfort, predictability, stability, routine. But wealth creation often requires stepping outside that comfort, learning new skills, taking calculated risks, exploring unfamiliar opportunities. This does not mean reckless decisions. It means developing the courage to build something larger than a paycheck. Every successful wealth builder eventually reaches a moment where they realize something powerful. Security does not come from employment alone. True security comes from control over value creation, control over systems, control over assets, control over opportunities. Once someone understands this idea, their priorities begin to change. They still work hard, but their effort is directed differently. Instead of investing all their energy into someone else's system, they begin building pieces of their own. Sometimes this begins with something small, a side project, a small investment, a simple idea tested in the market. At first, the results may seem insignificant, but each step builds experience. Experience builds confidence. Confidence leads to larger opportunities. And slowly, the dependence on a single source of income begins to fade. The person who once relied entirely on a paycheck now has multiple channels of value creation. This transformation rarely happens overnight. It grows through patience, through learning, through persistence. But once the process begins, the trap loses its power, because the individual is no longer climbing a ladder that has a ceiling. They are building a structure that can expand indefinitely. And this is the difference between working for money and designing a life where money flows through systems you help create. But even after escaping the trap, there is another layer of understanding waiting ahead. Because building wealth is not only about systems and assets, it is also about the way wealthy individuals see the world, the way they analyze risk, the way they identify opportunities long before others notice them. And in the next part, we will explore something even deeper: how wealthy thinkers train their minds to see value in places where most people see nothing at all, and how this way of thinking transforms ordinary ideas into extraordinary wealth.
Part 5. How the wealthy see the world differently. There is a subtle difference between the way most people see the world and the way wealthy thinkers observe it. At first, the difference is almost invisible. Both groups walk through the same cities, they watch the same news, they interact with the same economy, yet their conclusions about reality are completely different. Most people see the world as something that happens to them. Economic changes happen, companies make decisions, prices rise, opportunities appear or disappear. Life feels like a series of external events. But wealthy thinkers observe the world differently. They see systems. Behind every store, there is a supply chain. Behind every product, there is a production process. Behind every successful company, there is a structure designed to create value. And once someone begins seeing these invisible structures, they realize something powerful. The world is not just a place where things happen. It is a network of systems that people create. And systems can be understood. They can be improved. They can be redesigned. This awareness gives wealth builders a completely different perspective. When they see a business, they do not just see the product. They ask deeper questions. Where does the value actually come from? What makes customers choose this product? What part of the system creates the most profit? And where is the hidden inefficiency?
These questions transform everyday observation into opportunity. Because most industries contain inefficiencies, small frustrations, slow processes, unnecessary complexity. And every inefficiency represents an opening for innovation. The wealthy mind trains itself to look for these openings constantly. Consider something simple like waiting in line. Most people see an inconvenience. A wealth thinker sees a signal. Why is this process slow? Is there a better system? Could technology remove this friction? Could automation simplify the process? Many successful companies were born from exactly these questions. Someone noticed an everyday inconvenience. Instead of accepting it, they studied it. They asked how the experience could be improved, and that improvement became a business. This pattern repeats again and again across industries, because wealth often appears where friction disappears. Whenever life becomes easier, faster, or more efficient for large numbers of people, value is created, and value attracts money. But wealthy thinkers also understand another principle. The most powerful opportunities rarely appear obvious at the beginning. In fact, they often look uncertain or even strange. New ideas tend to challenge existing habits. When automobiles first appeared, many people believed horses would always dominate transportation. When personal computers appeared, many believed they were unnecessary for ordinary people. When the internet began spreading across the world, many dismissed it as a temporary novelty. Every generation underestimates the technologies that later transform the economy. Wealth builders pay attention to these moments. They study emerging trends, not because every trend will succeed, but because the few that do can reshape entire industries. This requires curiosity. It requires a willingness to explore unfamiliar ideas. And most importantly, it requires patience, because the early stages of innovation are often chaotic. Markets fluctuate, technologies evolve, public opinion changes. But those who study these shifts closely develop something incredibly valuable: perspective. Perspective allows them to see the long-term direction even when short-term noise creates confusion. While others panic during uncertainty, wealth thinkers observe. They ask what fundamental change is taking place beneath the surface. Is technology making something cheaper? Is behavior shifting in a new direction? Is a new generation adopting different habits? Understanding these forces allows them to anticipate opportunity before it becomes obvious, and anticipation is where enormous wealth is often created. Because by the time an opportunity becomes obvious to everyone, most of the value has already been captured. But there is another difference between ordinary thinking and wealth thinking, and it involves risk. Most people try to avoid risk completely. They seek stability, predictability, guaranteed outcomes. But the wealthy mind understands something subtle. Risk is not the enemy. Uninformed risk is. Every opportunity contains uncertainty, but uncertainty becomes manageable when knowledge increases. This is why successful investors spend enormous time studying markets, why entrepreneurs study industries before launching businesses, why innovators analyze behavior before introducing new ideas. They are not avoiding risk, they are reducing ignorance. The more knowledge someone gains, the more accurately they can evaluate opportunity. And over time, this ability becomes extremely powerful. Because the world constantly presents choices: where to invest time, where to invest energy, where to invest money. Most people make these decisions based on immediate circumstances. Wealth thinkers make them based on long-term patterns. They ask, where will value be created 5 years from now, 10 years from now? Where is demand growing? Where is technology improving efficiency? Where are people's behaviors changing? These questions allow them to position themselves early, and early positioning creates extraordinary advantage. But there is another layer to this mindset, a layer that many people overlook. Wealth thinkers understand the power of association. No one builds wealth entirely alone. Behind every successful entrepreneur, there are mentors, advisors, and collaborators. Behind every successful investor, there are networks of information. Behind every successful company, there are teams of talented individuals. Environment shapes thinking. The conversations you hear daily influence the ideas you consider possible. If someone spends years surrounded by people who only discuss limitations, their mind begins to accept those limitations as reality. But when someone enters environments where ideas are explored, where opportunities are discussed, where creativity is encouraged, their perception expands dramatically. Suddenly, possibilities appear that never seemed visible before. This is why wealth builders intentionally place themselves near ambitious thinkers. They read books that challenge their perspective. They listen to conversations about innovation. They expose themselves to ideas that stretch their imagination. Over time, this environment reshapes the way they interpret the world. And interpretation shapes action. Action shapes results. Results shape the future. Eventually, something remarkable happens. The person who once struggled to recognize opportunity now sees it everywhere, in industries that are changing, in technologies that are emerging, in problems that remain unsolved. Their mind has become trained to detect value, and this ability becomes one of the most powerful assets a person can develop. Because the economy never stops evolving, new industries appear, old industries transform, human needs continue expanding, and those who understand how to observe these changes gain an enormous advantage. They move with the future instead of resisting it. Yet even with this perspective, there is still another skill that separates those who become wealthy from those who simply understand ideas. A skill that turns observation into action. A skill that multiplies value once opportunity appears. And in the next part, we will explore that skill. The skill that transforms knowledge into momentum. The skill that allows wealth builders to move faster and further than those who rely on effort alone.
Part 6. The skill that multiplies money. There is a skill that quietly sits behind nearly every story of great wealth. It is rarely taught in school. It is rarely discussed in traditional careers. And yet it determines whether opportunity becomes profit or simply passes by. This skill is leverage. Most people spend their lives increasing effort. They work longer hours. They take on more responsibility. They try to become more productive. And while effort can improve income slightly, it rarely creates extraordinary wealth. Because effort alone is limited by time. A human being only has so many hours in a day. No matter how disciplined or hard-working someone becomes, that limit never changes. This is why leverage is so powerful. Leverage allows a person to create results far beyond the limits of their own time. It allows a small action to produce a large outcome. Imagine a single teacher explaining a lesson to one student. Now imagine the same lesson recorded and shared with millions of people. The effort was similar, but the impact is dramatically different. That difference is leverage. The wealthy learn to build leverage into everything they do. They do not simply ask how to work harder. They ask how to multiply the value of their work. And there are several forms of leverage that appear again and again in the stories of successful wealth builders. The first form of leverage is knowledge. Knowledge allows one decision to produce enormous results. An experienced investor can analyze a business in minutes and make a decision that grows capital for years. An experienced entrepreneur can identify a profitable market faster than someone who has never studied business. Knowledge compresses time. It allows insight that would normally take years to discover. But knowledge alone is not enough. The second form of leverage is technology.
Technology allows one idea to reach millions of people instantly. A piece of software can serve millions of users simultaneously. A digital platform can connect buyers and sellers across continents. A single innovation can replace thousands of repetitive processes. Throughout history, technology has created enormous fortunes because it removes limitations. It allows value to spread at incredible speed. This is why so many of the largest companies in the modern world are built around technological systems, because technology amplifies impact. But there is another powerful form of leverage: people. Teams allow complex systems to operate at scale. One individual can only manage a limited number of tasks, but a well-organized team can coordinate hundreds of moving parts simultaneously. The most successful entrepreneurs eventually realize that their greatest strength is not doing everything themselves. It is creating environments where talented people can contribute their best work. Leadership becomes a form of leverage, because the vision of one person becomes the coordinated effort of many. And when those efforts align, powerful things happen. But there is still another form of leverage that many people overlook: capital. Money invested wisely can produce more money without direct labor. Businesses expand using capital. Real estate grows in value as cities develop. Investments compound over time. Capital allows opportunity to move faster. But capital itself is often the result of the other forms of leverage. Knowledge identifies the opportunity. Technology expands the reach. People expand capability, and capital accelerates growth. These forces working together create the engines that produce extraordinary wealth. Yet many people never learn to use leverage because they remain trapped in a mindset that values effort above everything else. They believe working harder is always the answer. And in the early stages of life, hard work does play an important role. Effort builds discipline. Effort builds skill. Effort builds resilience. But eventually there comes a moment where effort must evolve into strategy. Instead of asking, "What more can I do today?" wealth builders ask, "What can I build today that will continue producing value tomorrow?" This question shifts attention from activity to design. Designing systems, designing assets, designing opportunities. Over time, these systems begin to operate with less direct effort. A product sells while the creator sleeps. An investment grows while the investor focuses on new ideas. A business expands while the founder explores future opportunities. This is the real meaning of financial momentum. Momentum occurs when value continues moving forward, even when direct effort slows down. And once momentum begins, it can accelerate rapidly, because each success creates new resources, more capital, more connections, more experience. These resources open doors to opportunities that were previously inaccessible. But leverage must be used carefully, because leverage multiplies outcomes. When used wisely, it multiplies success. When used poorly, it multiplies mistakes. This is why the most successful wealth builders spend years learning before they attempt large opportunities. They study markets, they test ideas, they experiment with small projects. Each attempt teaches valuable lessons, and these lessons gradually reduce risk. Over time, confidence grows. The person who once hesitated to take action now moves with clarity, because they understand the mechanics of value creation. They understand how systems behave. They understand where leverage exists. And this understanding changes how they approach opportunity. They no longer rely on luck. They rely on structure. A structure where knowledge identifies opportunities, technology expands reach, people increase capability, and capital accelerates growth. When these elements combine properly, something extraordinary happens. Small beginnings transform into large outcomes. Ideas evolve into industries. and individuals who once worked only for survival begin shaping the economic landscape around them. But even with leverage, there is a dangerous illusion that traps many ambitious people, an illusion that tells them one simple thing: work harder and success will follow. It sounds motivating, it sounds inspiring, but it hides a truth that many people discover too late. Hard work alone does not guarantee wealth. And in the next part, we will explore why. Why effort without direction can keep someone moving constantly while making almost no progress, and how the wealthy avoid this trap by focusing on something far more powerful than effort alone.
Part 7. Why hard work alone is not enough. There is a belief deeply rooted in many cultures around the world, a belief repeated by parents, teachers, and motivational speeches. Work hard and you will succeed. At first, this belief sounds perfectly reasonable. Hard work builds discipline. Hard work builds skill. Hard work builds character. And in many areas of life, effort does lead to improvement. But when it comes to wealth creation, something surprising happens. Hard work alone is rarely enough. In fact, some of the hardest working people in society remain financially stuck for decades. They wake up early, they stay late, they sacrifice weekends, yet their financial situation changes very little. Meanwhile, others appear to move forward much faster. They seem to generate income with less visible effort. This contrast creates confusion. How can someone working fewer hours earn dramatically more money? The answer lies in a simple but powerful distinction: the difference between activity and progress. Many people are extremely active. Their days are filled with tasks, emails, meetings, deadlines, responsibilities. But activity does not always move someone closer to wealth. True progress requires direction. Imagine someone running as fast as possible on a treadmill. They are working hard, they are sweating, they are exhausted, but they are not moving forward. Now imagine another person walking slowly in the correct direction. After an hour, the second person has traveled much farther. This is exactly how financial progress works. Speed does not matter if the direction is wrong. Many people work incredibly hard inside systems they do not control. Their income depends entirely on decisions made by someone else. If the company grows, they benefit slightly. If the company struggles, they suffer the consequences. Their effort fuels someone else's structure. And while there is nothing wrong with employment, it rarely leads to extraordinary wealth on its own. Because wealth usually belongs to those who design the systems, not just those who operate inside them. This realization can feel uncomfortable at first, but it also opens a new path, a path where effort becomes aligned with ownership, where work contributes to assets instead of only producing temporary income. But there is another reason hard work alone often fails to produce wealth. It does not automatically create leverage. A person can work 12 hours a day and still be limited by time. Their income remains connected directly to their presence. The moment they stop working, the income stops. This creates a fragile financial structure. One illness, one unexpected event, or one economic change can disrupt everything. The wealthy avoid this vulnerability by designing systems that continue operating without constant supervision. They build businesses that serve customers continuously. They invest in assets that grow independently. They create products that reach people around the world. These systems produce results even when the creator is not actively working. This is the difference between labor and architecture. Labor builds something once. Architecture creates a structure that continues producing value. But the transition from labor to architecture requires a different way of thinking. Instead of asking, "What task should I complete today?" wealth builders ask, "What structure am I building this year?" Structures take time. They require planning. They require patience.
And during the early stages, progress may feel slow. While others are receiving paychecks every week, the builder may be investing time into something that has not yet produced visible results. This is where many people give up. They return to the comfort of immediate income. But those who persist eventually experience a powerful shift. The structure begins to produce results. A business gains customers. An investment grows in value. A digital product reaches thousands of users. At this point, effort begins transforming into momentum. Momentum is one of the most powerful forces in wealth creation, because once something begins moving forward, it often becomes easier to continue expanding. Customers recommend products, investments compound, ideas spread. Each success creates additional opportunity. But momentum only appears when effort is directed towards something that can grow beyond the individual. This is why wealthy thinkers focus heavily on systems that can scale. Scale means reaching more people without requiring proportional increases in effort. A restaurant owner can only serve a limited number of customers in one location, but a software platform can serve millions simultaneously. A local service may depend entirely on the owner's presence, but a digital product can operate globally. This ability to scale transforms ordinary effort into extraordinary outcomes. And when scale combines with leverage, something remarkable happens. Small beginnings can evolve into massive impact. But there is still another element that determines whether hard work leads to wealth or exhaustion. That element is focus. The modern world constantly demands attention. Notifications, messages, news, social media, endless streams of information. Each distraction pulls energy away from meaningful progress. Wealth builders protect their attention carefully. They understand that attention is the fuel of creation. Without focus, even the most intelligent person struggles to build anything significant. But with focus, a single idea can transform an entire industry. This is why many successful individuals design their environments intentionally. They limit distractions. They prioritize learning. They dedicate time to thinking deeply about problems and opportunities. These quiet periods of thinking often produce insights that years of scattered effort could never achieve. Because wealth creation is not simply about doing more. It is about doing the right things consistently. And over time, these right actions accumulate. Small improvements compound. Ideas evolve. Systems grow stronger. Eventually, the difference becomes obvious. One person spent decades working harder. The other spent decades building something larger than themselves. And the results reflect that difference. But even when someone begins building systems and focusing their effort properly, there is another powerful principle waiting ahead. A principle that explains why certain individuals create enormous value while others struggle to gain attention. It is the principle of value itself. Understanding what value truly means in the economy and how recognizing hidden value can transform ordinary ideas into extraordinary wealth. And in the next part, we will explore the hidden game of value, the invisible game being played behind every successful product, service, and investment in the modern world.
Part 8. The Hidden Game of Value. If you observe the economy carefully long enough, you begin to notice something interesting. Money rarely moves randomly. It moves toward value. Every dollar that changes hands represents a decision. Someone believed that what they received was worth more than what they gave. A customer buys a product because it solves a problem. An investor funds a company because they believe it will create future value. An employer pays a salary because an employee contributes something useful. Value is the invisible force behind every transaction. Yet most people misunderstand what value truly means. They assume value is determined by effort. If something required a lot of work, it must be valuable. But the economy does not measure effort. It measures usefulness.
Something becomes valuable when it improves people's lives in a meaningful way, and the more people it helps, the greater the value becomes. This is why some individuals earn extraordinary amounts of money. They are not necessarily working harder than everyone else. They are simply creating value that reaches more people. Think about a small bakery on a neighborhood street. The baker wakes up early each morning, works carefully with ingredients, serves customers throughout the day. Their effort is admirable and important, but the number of people they can serve is limited. Now imagine a company that creates a product used by millions around the world. The initial effort may have been similar, but the scale of value is dramatically larger because millions benefit from the solution. This difference between local value and global value is one of the hidden engines of wealth. But value itself has many forms, and those who understand these forms gain a powerful advantage. The first form is practical value. Practical value solves immediate problems. Transportation services help people reach destinations. Medical solutions restore health. Technology simplifies complex tasks. When something saves time, reduces effort, or eliminates frustration, people are willing to pay for it. The second form is emotional value. Human beings are not purely logical. They seek experiences that inspire excitement, comfort, or belonging. Music, films, art, and entertainment create emotional value. Luxury products create emotional value. Even brands themselves create emotional value by shaping how people feel about identity and status. The third form is informational value. In a complex world, knowledge becomes extremely valuable. People pay for insights that help them make better decisions. Education, research, and specialized expertise all generate informational value. The fourth form is transformational value. This is one of the most powerful forms of value in modern society. Transformation changes the direction of someone's life. A program that helps someone build a career, a service that improves health dramatically, a tool that allows a creator to reach millions of people. Transformation creates deep loyalty because it produces lasting impact. Once you begin recognizing these different forms of value, you start seeing opportunities everywhere. A simple improvement to convenience can create practical value. A creative experience can create emotional value. A powerful insight can create informational value. A life-changing solution can create transformational value. But there's another secret inside the game of value. Value is not only created, it is communicated. Even the most useful idea can fail if people never understand its benefits. This is why communication plays such a powerful role in wealth creation. Entrepreneurs who understand storytelling can inspire belief in their vision. Creators who understand messaging can reach audiences across the world. Companies that communicate clearly can attract loyal customers. Communication bridges the gap between innovation and adoption. It transforms ideas into movements. But the hidden game of value also contains a deeper lesson. The most valuable opportunities often exist where value is misunderstood or ignored. In every generation, new industries appeared that people initially dismissed. Before personal computers became common, many believed they were unnecessary. Before online marketplaces expanded globally, many assumed retail would always depend on physical stores. Before digital content exploded, many believed media would remain controlled by traditional networks. In each case, a small group of individuals recognized value long before the majority understood it. They invested time, energy, and resources into something that looked uncertain, and when the world eventually caught up, enormous wealth followed. This pattern repeats throughout history. Value appears first in small signals, a new technology, a new behavior, a new cultural shift. At first, only a few observers recognize its potential, but as the signal grows stronger, opportunity expands. Those who understand value early position themselves ahead of the wave. Those who ignore it struggle to catch up later. This is why curiosity is one of the most valuable traits in the wealth journey. Curiosity leads people to explore unfamiliar ideas, to study emerging industries, to ask questions others never consider. Over time, curiosity becomes insight. Insight becomes strategy. Strategy becomes wealth. But understanding value also requires humility, because not every idea will succeed. Not every opportunity will become profitable. Failure is part of the exploration process. The most successful wealth builders accept this reality early. They experiment with small projects. They test ideas quickly. They learn from results. Each experiment produces knowledge, and knowledge increases the accuracy of future decisions. Eventually, the person who once struggled to recognize opportunity develops an intuitive sense of value. They can walk through a market, observe behavior, and identify inefficiencies. They can listen to a conversation and detect unmet needs. They can study trends and anticipate where demand will grow. This ability becomes one of the most powerful advantages in the modern economy, because while technology and industries constantly evolve, one thing remains constant: human needs continue expanding. People want faster solutions, better experiences, greater convenience, deeper connection, and every improvement in these areas creates new value. But even when someone understands value, another important question appears: how do certain individuals consistently identify opportunities while others overlook them? Why do some people recognize the next wave of change while most only react after it becomes obvious? The answer lies in something deeper than knowledge. It lies in strategic thinking, the ability to see patterns across time, to anticipate shifts before they fully appear, to position oneself where future growth will happen. And in the next part, we will explore the power of strategic thinking, the mental framework that allows wealth builders to navigate uncertainty and move confidently toward the opportunities of tomorrow.
Part 9. The Power of Strategic Thinking. Most people live their lives reacting to circumstances, reacting to problems, opportunities only after they become obvious. But wealth builders develop a different way of thinking. They learn to think strategically. Strategic thinking is the ability to look beyond the present moment and understand how today's decisions shape tomorrow's outcomes. It is the ability to see patterns before they become visible to everyone else. And it is one of the most powerful skills in wealth creation. Because the economy is constantly moving, industries rise and fall, technologies evolve, consumer behavior shifts. Those who only react to these changes are always late. But those who think strategically position themselves before the change fully arrives. To understand this idea, imagine standing beside a river. If you watch the water carefully, you begin to notice something. Small ripples appear before large waves. Tiny movements reveal the direction the current is heading. Strategic thinkers observe these ripples in the economy. They pay attention to early signals: a new technology gaining small adoption, a shift in consumer behavior, a growing frustration in a traditional industry. These signals may seem insignificant at first, but often they reveal the direction of future change. The individuals who learn to read these signals gain time, and time is one of the greatest advantages in wealth creation. Because positioning early allows someone to build knowledge, relationships, and resources before competition intensifies. This is why strategic thinkers ask different questions. Instead of asking, "What is popular today?" they ask, "What will become important tomorrow?" Instead of asking, "Where is everyone investing?" they ask, "Where will opportunity appear next?" These questions require imagination. They require curiosity, but they also require discipline, because predicting the future is never perfect. Strategic thinkers do not rely on guesswork alone. They study trends, they observe human behavior, they analyze technological progress.
Over time, they begin to see connections that others overlook. For example, when technology becomes cheaper, new industries often emerge. When communication becomes faster, global collaboration increases. When transportation improves, new markets become accessible. These patterns repeat across generations. Those who recognize them early can position themselves where growth will occur. But strategic thinking is not only about predicting the future, it is also about understanding the present more clearly. Many opportunities already exist, but remain hidden behind complexity. A strategic mind learns to simplify that complexity. It breaks problems into parts. It asks where inefficiencies exist. It identifies which element of a system creates the most value. This clarity allows wealth builders to make better decisions, because every opportunity contains multiple paths. Some paths lead to slow progress, others lead to exponential growth. Strategy is the art of choosing the path with the greatest long-term impact. But strategic thinking also requires patience. Many people become discouraged when results do not appear quickly. They expect immediate rewards. Yet the most powerful strategies often take years to fully unfold. An investor who studies a promising industry may wait patiently for the right moment. An entrepreneur building a new platform may spend years developing technology before rapid growth begins. During these quiet periods, it can feel as though nothing is happening. But beneath the surface, preparation is occurring. Skills are improving. Networks are forming. Knowledge is deepening. When the opportunity finally arrives, those who prepared are ready to act. Those who did not prepare remain spectators. This is why strategic thinkers spend significant time observing before making major decisions. They resist the pressure to rush. They understand that a well-positioned move can produce far greater results than constant activity. But strategy also involves understanding risk. Every opportunity carries uncertainty. The future cannot be predicted perfectly. However, uncertainty can be managed. Strategic thinkers reduce uncertainty through learning. They gather information. They consult experienced individuals. They test ideas on a small scale before committing large resources. This process transforms risk into calculated exploration. Instead of gambling on unknown outcomes, they design experiments that reveal valuable insights. Over time, these insights improve judgment, and improved judgment leads to better decisions. Better decisions compound. Each successful decision increases confidence and resources. Those resources open access to larger opportunities. Eventually, a pattern emerges. Strategic thinkers appear to move from one opportunity to another with remarkable timing. But this timing is rarely accidental. It is the result of years spent studying patterns and preparing for change. However, there is another dimension to strategy that many people overlook. It is the ability to align personal strengths with opportunity. Not every opportunity fits every individual. Some people excel in technology, others in communication, others in leadership or design. Strategic thinkers understand their own strengths and place themselves where those strengths create the greatest value. When skill and opportunity align, momentum appears naturally. Progress becomes faster, learning becomes easier, impact expands more quickly. But even the most brilliant strategy cannot succeed without execution. Ideas alone do not create wealth. Plans alone do not transform industries. At some point, action must begin. The difference between dreamers and builders is the willingness to act when preparation meets opportunity. Wealth builders eventually recognize a powerful truth. Strategy guides direction. Action creates movement. Together, they form the foundation of progress. And as progress continues, another important question emerges. Once someone understands leverage, value, and strategy, how do they actually expand their income beyond ordinary limits? How do small beginnings transform into large financial ecosystems? The answer lies in a process known as scaling, the art of expanding value without expanding effort at the same speed. And in the next part, we will explore how scaling works, how ideas grow into systems, how systems grow into industries, and how individuals learn to design income that expands far beyond the limits of time.
At some point in the journey toward wealth, a powerful realization appears. Income that depends entirely on time will always remain limited. No matter how intelligent a person becomes, no matter how disciplined or hard-working they are, time never expands. There are still only 24 hours in a day. This is why many people eventually reach a financial plateau. Their skills improve, their income increases, but their progress slows because they are still trading time for money. This is where the concept of scaling becomes essential. Scaling means expanding results without increasing effort at the same rate. It is the difference between growth that moves step by step and growth that accelerates. Imagine a person who tutors one student at a time. They can only teach as many students as their schedule allows. Now imagine that same person creating a program that thousands of students can access online. The effort required to create the program may have been significant, but once it exists, it can reach far more people than one person could ever teach individually. This is scaling, and scaling changes the mathematics of income. Instead of being tied to hours worked, income becomes connected to impact created. The greater the reach of the value, the greater the potential reward. But scaling rarely happens by accident. It requires intentional design. Wealth builders constantly ask themselves a powerful question. How can this idea reach more people without requiring more of my time? Sometimes the answer involves technology. A digital platform can serve millions of users simultaneously. Software can automate processes that once required hundreds of employees. Content created once can be consumed by audiences across the world. Technology removes geographical and time limitations. But scaling can also occur through systems. Consider a small restaurant. The owner can only serve a limited number of customers in one location. But if that restaurant becomes a system with clear processes, it can expand into multiple locations. Each location follows the same structure. Each team follows the same principles. The original idea multiplies. What began as one business becomes a network. This principle appears across nearly every industry. A successful product becomes a brand. A brand becomes a global company. A simple idea grows into an ecosystem of services. But scaling also requires a change in mindset, because growth introduces complexity. More customers create more demands. More opportunities create more decisions. If a founder tries to control everything personally, growth eventually stops. The system becomes dependent on one individual. Wealth builders avoid this trap by designing structures that operate independently. They build teams with clear responsibilities. They create processes that can be repeated. They develop systems that function even when the founder steps away. This transformation from operator to architect is one of the most important shifts in the wealth journey. An operator manages tasks. An architect designs systems. Operators work inside the structure. Architects build the structure itself. Once someone learns to think like an architect, the possibilities expand dramatically. Because systems can multiply. One system can generate resources that fund the creation of another. One successful venture can open doors to new industries. One innovation can evolve into an entire network of products and services. But scaling also applies to investments. When capital is invested wisely, it can grow without continuous effort. Profits are reinvested. Assets appreciate.
returns compound over time. Compounding is one of the most powerful forces in finance because growth builds upon previous growth. A small increase becomes a larger increase. That larger increase becomes an even greater one. Over years, this process creates outcomes that seem almost unbelievable. But the process begins with a simple principle. Value must grow faster than effort. When value expands efficiently, income expands naturally. This is why many wealth builders eventually focus on creating assets that can scale globally. Digital platforms, intellectual property, investment portfolios, licensing systems. Each of these allows value to travel beyond physical limitations. But scaling also requires responsibility, because systems that reach millions of people influence millions of lives. A product that improves productivity can transform businesses. A platform that connects communities can reshape communication. A technology that simplifies tasks can change entire industries. The larger the scale, the greater the impact. This is why the most successful wealth builders often focus on creating solutions that genuinely improve people's lives, because sustainable value creates sustainable growth. Short-term profits may appear quickly, but long-term wealth usually follows long-term value. And when value spreads widely, something interesting happens. Reputation begins to grow. People trust the system. Customers return. Partners seek collaboration. Opportunity begins to multiply. Momentum becomes stronger. At this stage, growth often accelerates rapidly. What once required enormous effort now expands almost naturally. But even with powerful systems and growing income, there is still one final transformation required to achieve true wealth. Because financial success alone does not automatically create freedom. Many individuals build businesses yet remain trapped inside them. Many accumulate money yet never experience peace of mind. True wealth requires something deeper. It requires a psychological shift, a shift in how success is defined. In the next part, we will explore the psychology of financial freedom, the mindset that allows individuals not only to create wealth, but also to experience the freedom that wealth is meant to provide.
Many people spend years chasing wealth, believing that once they reach a certain number, everything will finally feel secure. They imagine that financial success will eliminate stress, that money will remove uncertainty, that one day they will reach a point where everything feels complete. But something surprising often happens when people finally achieve financial success. The feeling they expected does not always arrive. Some become wealthier, yet remain anxious. Others build large businesses, but feel more trapped than ever before. And some individuals who once dreamed of financial freedom realize they have built a life that still demands constant attention. This reveals an important truth. Wealth alone does not create freedom. Freedom is psychological. It comes from the way a person relates to money, time, and purpose. Many people believe freedom means never working again. But for most successful individuals, that idea quickly becomes unsatisfying. Human beings are not designed for permanent inactivity. They are designed to create, to explore, to build. True freedom is not the absence of effort, it is the presence of choice, the ability to choose what problems you want to solve, the ability to decide how you spend your time, the ability to pursue ideas that matter to you rather than those imposed by necessity. When people reach this stage, their relationship with money changes. Money is no longer the primary goal. It becomes a tool that allows them to direct their energy toward meaningful pursuits. But reaching this stage requires another transformation. It requires letting go of fear of losing status, fear of making mistakes, fear of stepping away from structures that once defined success.
Many individuals spend years building careers that bring financial rewards but little personal fulfillment, and leaving those structures can feel uncomfortable even when the opportunity for freedom exists. This is where the psychology of wealth becomes important, because wealth builders eventually realize something powerful. Security does not come from controlling every outcome. It comes from confidence in one's ability to adapt. The world changes constantly. Markets shift, industries evolve, new technologies appear. Trying to create permanent certainty is impossible, but developing the ability to navigate uncertainty creates genuine confidence. This confidence allows people to take thoughtful risks, to explore new ideas, to reinvent themselves when circumstances change. And over time, this mindset becomes one of the most valuable assets a person can possess, because the future always belongs to those who adapt. But the psychology of financial freedom also includes gratitude. Many people chase wealth so intensely that they postpone happiness. They believe satisfaction must wait until some distant milestone. But this mindset can turn the journey into an endless race. Every achievement leads to another goal. Every milestone reveals a new horizon. Without gratitude, the pursuit of success becomes exhausting. Gratitude creates balance. It reminds individuals to appreciate progress, to recognize the opportunities they have already experienced, to enjoy the process of building rather than only the results. Ironically, this mindset often leads to greater creativity and better decisions, because when someone is not driven purely by fear or pressure, they think more clearly, they act with greater intention, they build with a longer perspective, and this longer perspective often produces stronger outcomes. Another important element of financial freedom is contribution. Many individuals discover that once their personal needs are satisfied, their motivation begins to shift. They start asking deeper questions. How can I create something meaningful? How can I improve the lives of others? How can my work leave a lasting impact? These questions transform wealth from a personal achievement into a platform for positive influence. Some mentor new entrepreneurs, others invest in innovative ideas, others dedicate resources to education, health, or community development. In each case, wealth becomes a force for expansion rather than accumulation, and this shift often brings a sense of fulfillment that money alone could never provide. Because human beings naturally seek purpose. Purpose transforms effort into meaning. It gives direction to creativity. It connects individual success to something larger. But perhaps the most powerful aspect of financial freedom is time. Time is the one resource that cannot be replaced. Money can be lost and earned again. Opportunities can disappear and reappear. But time moves only in one direction. Those who achieve financial freedom gain the ability to invest their time deliberately. They can learn new skills, build new ideas, travel, explore, and experience the world, spend meaningful moments with family and friends. These experiences create memories that last far longer than material possessions. And over time, many wealthy individuals realize that the ultimate value of money lies in the time it can protect, the freedom to choose how life unfolds. This is the destination many people imagine when they begin the journey toward wealth. But the journey itself is equally important, because along the way, individuals develop discipline, courage, curiosity, and resilience. They learn how systems operate, how value is created, how opportunities appear, and these lessons become far more valuable than any single financial result. Eventually, the focus shifts from simply acquiring wealth to mastering the art of creating it repeatedly, because someone who understands the principles behind wealth can rebuild it again and again, no matter how circumstances change. And this brings us to the final stage of the journey, the stage where an individual fully embraces their role not just as a participant in the economy, but as an architect of value, a creator of systems, a builder of opportunities. In the final part, we will explore what it truly means to become the architect of your own financial destiny, and how this mindset transforms the pursuit of wealth into a lifelong process of creation and growth.
There comes a moment in the journey toward wealth when everything begins to look different. The world that once seemed confusing starts to reveal its structure. Opportunities that once felt invisible become easier to recognize, and the path forward begins to feel less like a mystery and more like a design. This is the moment when a person stops thinking like a participant in the economy and begins thinking like an architect. An architect does not simply accept the structure of a building. They design it. They imagine how each part connects, how the foundation supports the walls, how the walls support the roof. They think about the long-term stability of the entire system. Wealth works in a similar way. Those who build lasting prosperity do not rely on luck or random opportunity. They design financial structures intentionally. They understand that every decision creates a consequence. Every investment shapes future options. Every habit influences long-term results. And slowly, they begin constructing something powerful, a financial architecture. At first, this structure may be small, a single investment, a small business idea, a skill that creates value in the marketplace. But over time, these elements begin connecting. Income becomes savings, savings become investments, investments become assets, assets begin generating additional opportunities. The structure grows stronger with each layer. Just as an architect carefully reinforces a building's foundation, wealth builders reinforce the foundations of their financial life. They continue learning. They remain curious about new industries and technologies. They adapt as the world evolves. Because the economy is never static, new opportunities appear, old systems disappear. The individuals who thrive are those who remain flexible while holding strong principles. One of those principles is ownership. Ownership transforms effort into equity. It allows someone to benefit not only from their labor, but from the growth of the systems they help create. Whether that ownership comes from businesses, investments, or intellectual property, it forms the pillars of long-term wealth. Another principle is patience. Modern culture often celebrates instant success, stories of overnight victories and sudden fame. But the truth behind most great fortunes is much quieter. Years of preparation, years of experimentation, years of small improvements that compound into extraordinary outcomes. Patience allows someone to remain committed during the early stages when progress is slow. And patience allows investments in systems the time they need to mature. A third principle is responsibility, because wealth is not simply about accumulation, it is about stewardship, how resources are used, how opportunities are expanded, how success influences the lives of others. Those who build lasting wealth understand that money amplifies intention. When used wisely, it can support innovation, create employment, fund education, encourage creativity. But when used carelessly, it can create instability and waste. This is why the most respected wealth builders often develop a strong sense of purpose. They understand that financial success carries influence, and influence can shape the future. Yet perhaps the most important realization of all is this: wealth is not a destination, it is a process of observing, learning, building, and improving. Every new stage reveals additional possibilities. Every experience expands perspective, and every challenge becomes an opportunity for growth. The individual who once struggled to understand money now sees the patterns behind it.
They understand leverage. They recognize value. They think strategically. They design systems that scale. And with this knowledge, they are no longer dependent on a single opportunity. They can create opportunities repeatedly. This is the true power of the wealth mindset. Not the ability to earn one fortune, but the ability to build value again and again. Because once someone understands how value is created, they see that the world is full of possibilities. Every industry contains inefficiencies waiting to be improved. Every generation introduces new technologies that reshape opportunity. Every challenge society faces becomes an invitation for innovation. The architect of wealth moves through this landscape with curiosity. They ask questions, they test ideas, they remain open to learning, and over time, their impact expands. But perhaps the most important lesson of all is that the journey toward wealth begins much earlier than people expect. It begins in the mind, with a simple shift in perspective. Instead of asking, "How can I survive in the system?" the question becomes, "How can I build something valuable within it?" This transforms the role a person plays in the world, from worker to creator, from observer to builder, from participant to architect. And once this transformation takes place, the path forward becomes clearer. The systems of wealth are no longer hidden. They are visible in everyday life, in businesses that solve problems, in technologies that connect people, in investments that support innovation. And the individual who understands these systems realizes something powerful. The opportunity to build wealth has never been greater than it is today, because the tools available now allow ideas to travel faster than ever before, allow creativity to reach global audiences, allow small beginnings to grow into massive influence. The only requirement is the willingness to see the world differently, to learn continuously, to act with patience and discipline, and to design a life that creates value far beyond the limits of time. When someone commits to this path, wealth becomes more than money. It becomes a lifelong practice of creation, a process of turning ideas into systems and systems into opportunity, a journey that begins with curiosity, grows through knowledge, and ultimately leads to a life built not by chance, but by design.